I don't know how we'll know if the microphones are working.
If he's going out live, we could check just by tuning into it on...
You could, can you close the door fully?
Do you want me to go check on my phone that he's doing it?
If you like, yeah.
Yeah?
Has everyone got a prayer book?
Yeah.
Yes.
As we're tuning in live, apologies for the technical flat doodles. Even the little stand for this isn't right. Oh dear.
So is it supposed to be doing it live? Is it
Should
on?
be.
Yeah, it is. Okay, let's just check this out.
Hello world.
Not while we were chatting.
Anything coming through? Are you hearing anything?
No, I can't do it on this device actually, because the client on it. Let me just do it on the tablet. And get there. Better that you know this, do you?
It gets more and more ludicrous, this technical stuff, doesn't it? Technology. I think one day there'll come a point where it'll all suddenly break down at the same moment. Everything will stop working.
Yeah. We'll all be
We'll
mindful.
have to go back to, you know, cooking chapatis on a griddle.
Sounds good to me.
Sounds all right to
That's
me. I have no
simpler,
problem
won't
with that.
it?
Yeah. Right, yeah, let's...
Now that we've all let everybody know how we all feel.
Don't know where I can show it. So it says it's live.
Yeah?
And you press on that, but I can't see any video.
Right, you can see it on the other one. You can see.
So if I go back, so we've got this here. So you know, it's got all the recorded ones there. And
Right.
that says live,
Okay, press that.
but when you go there, see if you can net.
I was being a bit confused about this because obviously I never watch it live myself, so. Yes, uploads.
Just asking me if I'm asking for Jamaican live TV.
Wow,
You had to have put.
that'll be a bit lively this.
Here we go, 3 minutes.
Yeah. Okay, and Matthew.
Oh no, I've subscribed you, Paul, hope you don't mind.
I think I'm already. Well, maybe not on that device.
No.
But,
Yeah, here you are.
Have you got me?
I've got you. It's just whirring round, but I've got you.
Live myself, so.
Well,
Okay, that's working, isn't it?
That's
It's
now.
going out live.
Yes.
Having a time warp.
Time warp.
Do you want me to go check on my phone? Do you want me to go
Okay,
check on my phone?
I'd like to apologise to the viewing public for the
He said, "Don't check, don't check."
less than excellent technology at Giant Centre Leeds. Okay, let's get started. Thank you for coming or listening, especially Tim Smith. Thank you for your patience. So we begin as usual with the Heart Sutra on page 9. And please take 2 or 3 minutes just to tune in, so you all know the drill. But especially focus on your motivation, bodhicitta motivation, please. Okay. Thus did I hear at one time, Bhagavan was dwelling on massive Vultures Mountain in Rajagriha, together with a great community of monks and a great community of bodhisattvas. At that time, the Bhagavan was absorbed in the concentration on the categories of phenomena called profound perception. Also, at that time, the Bodhisattva Mahasattva Arya Avalokiteshvara looked upon the very practice of the profound perfection of wisdom and beheld those 5 aggregates also as empty of inherent nature. Then, through the power of Buddha, the Venerable Shariputra said this to the Bodhisattva Mahasattva Arya Avalokiteshvara: how should any son of the lineage train who wishes to practice the activity of the profound perfection of wisdom? He said that, and the Bodhisattva Mahasattva Arya Avalokiteshvara said this to the Venerable Shariputra: Shariputra, any son of the lineage or daughter of the lineage who wishes to practice the activity of the profound perfection of wisdom should look upon it like this, correctly and repeatedly beholding those 5 aggregates also as empty of inherent nature. Form is empty, emptiness is form. Emptiness is not other than form, form is also not other than emptiness. In the same way, feeling, discrimination, compositional factors and consciousness are empty. Shariputra, likewise all phenomena are emptiness, without characteristic, unproduced, unceased, stainless, not without stain, not deficient, not fulfilled. Shariputra, therefore in emptiness there is no form, no feeling, no discrimination, no compositional factors, no consciousness, no eye, no ear, no nose, no tongue, no body, no mind, no visual form, no sound, no odour, no taste, no object of touch, and no phenomena. There is no I element, and so on, up to and including no mind element and no mental consciousness element. There is no ignorance, no extinction of ignorance, and so on, up to and including no aging and death, and no extinction of aging and death. Similarly, there is no suffering, origination, cessation, and path. There is no exalted wisdom, no attainment, and also no non-attainment. Shariputra, therefore, because there is no attainment, bodhisattvas rely on and dwell in the perfection of wisdom, the mind without obscuration and without fear. Having completely passed beyond error, they reach the end point of nirvana. All the Buddhas who dwell in the three times also manifestly completely awaken to unsurpassable, perfect, complete enlightenment in reliance on the perfection of wisdom. Therefore, the mantra of the perfection of wisdom, the mantra of great knowledge, the unsurpassed mantra, the mantra equal to the unequalled, the mantra that thoroughly pacifies all suffering, should be known as truth since it is not false. The mantra of the perfection of wisdom is declared. Hayata Om Gate Gate Paragate Parasamgate Bodhisattva. Shariputra, the Bodhisattva Mahasattva should train in the profound perfection of wisdom like that. Then the Bhagavan arose from that concentration and commended the Bodhisattva Mahasattva Arya Avalokiteshvara, saying, well said, son of the lineage, it is like that. It is like that. One should practice the profound perfection of wisdom just as you have indicated, even the Tathagatas rejoice. The Bhagavan, having thus spoken, the Venerable Shariputra, the Bodhisattva Mahasattva Arya Avalokiteshvara, those surrounding in their entirety, along with the world of gods, humans, asuras and Gandharvas, were overjoyed and highly praised that spoken by the Bhagavan. Clearly to mind the visualization of Guru Shakyamuni Buddha. Seated on a golden and jewelled throne, supported by 8 white lions, upon a lotus sun and moon seat. In the meditation posture, Vajra posture of meditation, left hand cupped at the navel holding a begging bowl, right hand touching the earth, wearing the 3 robes of a monk, having all the signs of a fully enlightened Buddha. Independence on having practiced lifetime after lifetime after lifetime, motivated by selfless compassion for all living beings, Guru Shakyamuni Buddha has completely eliminated all faults, all shortcomings of his mental and physical being, and completely developed all positive qualities to their highest potential. This is the meaning of Sangye, Tibetan word for Buddha. Totally eliminated all negative qualities, fully developed all positive ones. Perfect wisdom, limitless compassion, perfect skillful means. All the spiritual qualities that we need for someone to be an ideal spiritual guide, able to lead us to the highest enlightenment. Shakyamuni Buddha is none other than your own root guru. There's no differentiation, same mental continuum, simply different external form. Strongly feel that he is present in the space in front of you, in a body of light, a subtle body. You can imagine he is present where the Buddha statue is on the shrine. I say imagine, in fact I should say believe. Generate the conviction that this is actually so, as the Buddha himself declared. And meditate deeply upon refuge and the mind of bodhicitta. Bringing to mind the depthless ocean of suffering of this samsaric universe. All sentient beings whose minds are obscured by ignorance experience the full sufferings of birth, aging, sickness and death. Limitless types of mental and physical suffering over and over again. Recognizing all these sentient beings as equal to oneself, as dear to oneself as well as one's own parents or one's own child. Generate heartfelt compassion. How can I free them from their sufferings? Without developing my mind to the level of full enlightenment, there is no chance to be able to help all these limitless suffering beings. Therefore, with strong determination, turning to the Buddha as a source of refuge, guide, the only one who can lead me all the way along the spiritual path, to be able to develop the qualities that I need in order to help all these suffering beings. So here, in the Mahayana context, the meaning of refuge is to entrust oneself to the Buddha as the one who can take you to complete enlightenment for the sake of all. We recite the refuge verse, page 20. Sangye chedang soki chodamna Changchu padu dagni kyam suche Dagi chenyen ki fe sonam ki Chola pancha sangye rupasho Sangye chedang soki chodamna Changchu padu dagni kyam suche Dagi chenyen ki pe sonam ki Chola pancha sangye drupasho Sangye chedang soki chodama Changchu padu dagni kyam suche Dagi chenyen ki pe sonam ki Chola pancha sangye drupasho. And our offering, page 22. In order to symbolize a recognition of the infinite value of the Mahayana teachings. We offer this visualized offering, mentally offering everything in the universe in a pure form, all things which are most precious. Visualize it as this mandala world, this pure land, with the circular golden disc, the iron fence around, and the ocean, the sacred Mount Meru in the centre, the 4 continents, 8 subcontinents, the sun and moon above. All of the auspicious items, wish-fulfilling tree, uncultivated harvests, and goddesses, songs, flowers and so on. All these special offerings showing our gratitude, our appreciation of this most precious gift of the teachings. Sajipaki Jojing Meto Dramri Rabling Ji Nidegen Badi Sangye Guru Shakyamuni Buddha is extremely pleased with your generation of the mind of taking refuge, the mind of bodhicitta, and with your offering of the mandala. The throne dissolves into the lotus, into the sun seat, into the moon seat, into Guru Shakyamuni Buddha. He comes towards you, becoming smaller, turning round, coming to rest on the crown of your head. Feel this is your own root Guru, there above your head. Blessing your body, speech and mind. His body dissolves into golden light and nectar which flow down in the central channel, filling your whole body, cleansing and purifying all your 5 aggregates, purifying all negative karmas, healing all sickness, dispelling suffering, dissolving, eliminating all negative minds and delusions, ignorance. Your body becomes very light and pure like crystal. Your mind becomes very peaceful. Your mind merges with the holy mind of Guru Shakyamuni Buddha, Dharmakaya mind. Of serene bliss, totally absorbed in the emptiness of inherent existence of all phenomena. All phenomena said to be of one taste, the taste of emptiness. As the sutra said, in emptiness there is no form, no feeling, no discrimination, no compositional factors, no consciousness, no ear, no tongue, eye, no ear, no tongue, no body, no mind. Just spacious, empty clarity. Pure awareness, being aware of being aware. When you're ready, gently relax your concentration and slowly bring the meditation to a close.
Sorry I'm late.
You're welcome, don't worry.
When you're doing the prayers, please speak up because you've got quite a deep voice. And the higher women's especially, but men's voices are the easier it is to hear. And I don't want to miss the Dharma, but I didn't want to interrupt.
Thank you, Alan. I'll try and remember to speak louder.
Talk like a woman.
Well, raise my voice an octave. I'll try my best. Actually, I was in a singing group this week, and I normally sing bass, but I've struggled to sing bass because the bottom notes are very weak. So I tried singing tenor, and it was fine for about 3 or 4 minutes, and then my voice started to crack. So I don't think I'll be able to do that. I'll have to just speak louder, I think.
I think it'd be fun you just giving it a go, you know.
Yeah, go. So, do the prayers in a way.
That's what I heard at one time.
Instead of that deep, serious Tibetan, frivolous, manic.
Very good. All right.
All the
It's good to bring a
world's
bit of
stage.
humour into it. Thank you. So, but can I hear a little bit, as is my new tradition, about how it's been going with your practice this week? If I can remember, what was the actual... Does anyone remember what was the topic of meditation last week? What was the meditation that I did?
The teaching or the meditation?
Meditation. Anyone remember?
Well, we went to page 20 because I noticed that. I'm noticing the pattern of the evenings.
Yeah, no,
But I don't know other than
the
that.
meditation at the beginning is usually the same, but at the end...
Generating body sheet.
No, because it's
Were you here last week?
Oh, sorry, no.
No, you weren't.
No.
It's in mindfulness.
Was anybody here last week? Were you here?
No.
one was here.
Nobody was, apart from me.
Nobody was here, okay.
And I can't remember.
And you can't remember, okay.
But I can report in one sentence. Very
No, I know, no, because I was talking about the third and fourth noble truth, wasn't I? Talking about cessation of suffering. Yeah. So it will have been on that topic. Now, if you weren't here, there's no point in asking you. So I'll just ask about how your meditation's been going this week. Anyway, anybody had any experiences or any questions or problems or thoughts?
I've been really quite ill, so I
Have
didn't
you?
come last Thursday.
Oh, really? Sorry to
Really disappointed I couldn't make Ribshire's teaching.
Oh dear. Yes.
But over the weekend, when I was particularly on Saturday, like a food poisoning type.
Oh
bug.
dear.
So you know how debilitating that is.
Yes.
And I remember thinking to myself at one point, this is great. He's paying off this negative card.
Oh, yeah, very good
It's
thought,
good
yeah.
that I'm being ill.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it didn't last long, I have to say that thought. Doubled up on the settee. But I did try to think, this is great. I'm
Yeah.
better getting rid of this now. I need to experience this now. Get
Too
rid of
right.
the I've done something, this negative gap. So yeah, trying to apply the teachings into things that happen. I think it's, you know,
That's what it's all about.
you got to do, haven't you?
Absolutely.
Because
yeah.
it is all experiential.
Totally. So tell me, Bob, in that brief period of time when you were having that thought,
Yeah.
was your experience more positive or less positive than when you weren't having that thought?
While I could keep the thought in concentration, it's good because you can move the pain. You can move pain.
It's like the pain doesn't have that same power over you if you are not labelling it as
Yeah.
by being a victim to it as I'm,
Yeah.
you know, poor me. You're using it in a
Yeah.
positive way.
Yeah.
It doesn't have the same power. It doesn't have the same. It's not the same suffering, is it?
Yeah.
It actually reduces the suffering by seeing it in a positive light.
I do it when I go to the dentist.
Yeah. Right.
I don't like going to the dentist
Yeah.
at all. And I do that when I'm in the dentist chair. I try and move my thoughts. I try and move the pain
Mm.
because it just turns into a mess.
Yeah.
My dentist knows me quite well.
Yeah. So that is always that is a great practice to do whenever things are getting tough. Is, you know, this is saving me from worse suffering in the future. It's eliminating, it's burning up the negative karma. It's very powerful.
It's a hard practice, but
Hard
even
practice.
if you can only do it for a few seconds or minutes, I think it is
Yeah.
very valuable.
Mm. Very
You can
good.
draw on it next time.
Mm. Good. Thank you, Bob. Anyone else? Anything?
I've done that with, had to do an MRI, go for an MRI a
Uh-huh.
few years ago, and the first time I went, I was absolutely terrified, started
Uh-huh.
to panic
Right.
with that, because it had the head and
Yeah.
that thing going over your head, and
Uh-huh.
they were getting really concerned, and then I had to have another one a couple of years later, and I was doing on my home, because it was the only one I could remember at the time,
Right. Yeah.
and it really worked.
Okay. Right.
It really did, so that got me through a 20-minute.
So it's very good, these very practical
Yeah.
ways to use a Dharma to actually just improve the quality of your daily life, you know, make life less arduous.
I think on my home
Worth one.
is a very good one because it's imprinted when
Yeah.
you've been doing the Dharma for a few years, those syllables. When I'm on the bike in summer, unfortunately I see a lot of roadkill. And when I'm riding and I see roadkill, on my home, you know,
Yeah,
I haven't got time to concentrate on medicine but a mantra, but I can get those three syllables
yeah.
out in my
Right.
mind before I see the next one.
Yeah.
And I always think, on some level, that's doing benefit.
Definitely.
You know, it's,
Sure. Yeah, very good. So, now I did initially ask about meditation as well. So,
Yeah.
anybody been doing any?
I haven't been doing any meditation there, apart from when I go to work in my car on the morning before I go
Okay.
in.
That's good. And you know, I think we can get a bit sort of stuck on thinking. You know, I'm not actually meditating unless I'm sitting on the cushion, and that's not the case at all. Really,
No,
shouldn't
that's
think
right.
like that. You can do meditation any time of the day or night. You know, just as long as you've got enough free attention to be able to, you know,
Yeah.
as long as if you're consciously focusing on a positive thought, a Dharma thought, that is meditation at any time of the day or night. So, you know, I think it's good to not sort of have this black and white, you know, I'm only meditating when I'm sat like this.
I went for a walk this morning along the river,
Yeah.
and I was trying to do a walking meditation.
Yeah. walking meditation very good.
Yeah, it was because it
Often
was
much better than
slow
sitting
and it,
meditation. Geshe Tashi says, and he does it a lot. It's quite unusual for a Tibetan Lama, but it's because Geshe Tashi used to go, and probably still goes, every year to their Buddhist summer school, where they, and actually gets, teachings and talks from people from all Buddhist traditions. He knows a lot about other traditions, and he's really taken that on board from the Theravada tradition, the value of walking meditation. I think it is done in Tibet, but it's much less common. But yeah, I think the motion of the body actually makes it easier to have relatively stable concentration. Probably the really deep concentration in sitting is better, but to actually develop concentration, walking meditation, I think is more effective than sitting, because for most of us, because we're stationary, the mind tends to be busy, whereas if you've got that rhythmic movement, it stills the mind. The mind kind of, tunes into that rhythm, and it can be more quiet.
It takes the edge off the normal anxiety.
Yeah.
Now that I fully understand the question, I think,
Yeah.
I have for 10 years done, depends how you define it, but the walking meditation, daily contemplation, wholesome thoughts. My definition of meditation is any activity of mind and or the body that is wholesome. Because I know if I can cultivate one wholesome quality, it will, through co-conditionality, it will bring up loads of others. That's my experience.
Yeah.
And I've been doing that for
Very
at
true.
least 10 years. I started meditating 7 years before that. And I've reached the point now, although I live in very adverse conditions with noisy neighbours keeping me up a third of the nights, and I do get death threats because I do help the police, and I've done it for 30 years, help the police break up gangs and make the streets safer. But none of these things bother me. I love even adversity as much as ice cream. I heard that a few months ago here, and I thought, no way that be true. And bam! In my daily Dharma thoughts, my meditations, it's there. I hold very little anger or resentment or bitterness. It passes in seconds, at the most a few minutes. So I also know that when I think I've got it, it disappears. So I'm very, very mindful to think, no, I haven't got it. I'm profoundly ignorant, and that's my meditation in short. And I have set up the shrine in the attic whilst I'm having lots of work done there by the landlord, and it doesn't bother me. I never thought I could reach this stage.
Very good.
It's like a miracle, except it's based on years of daily practical listening to the teacher, getting your ego out of the way, and finding what's right for me as an individual. Because if I don't include, I know we're all united at some level, but if I don't include my idiosyncrasies, my little madnesses, I'm not judging these are just words, mere concept, then I tend to trip up a hell of a lot. So my practice is going really well.
That's good to hear, thank you.
I'm happiest I've ever been.
That's even better.
I think enlightenment is possible.
That's best of all.
Like you've already had it now.
No, I haven't. I've met 30 odd teachers who are partially fully enlightened. The joy and calm they carry. Every time I've met them, something rubs off in my sleep or in the daytime, wordlessly.
Wordlessly? Really?
From emptiness. I can't explain what went on with, especially when I've had an hour's chat with these teachers.
I'm
But
glad to
even
hear.
if it's a minute, it rubs off. My experience is that it's right what the scriptures and commentary says. It is direct, wordless experience, and it rubs off. That's my experience. I just come away with more joy and calm or something wholesome. And people say, "Where have you been?" And it's like, I said, "I don't know. I can't put it into words. It's really hard to put it into words, but that's what rubs off, and that's wonderful."
I'm glad to hear that it's wordless, Milan.
Not just wordless, but it is wordless. I'll shut up now.
So we will continue. And here we are, part 3. The great scope of the Lam Rim.
What chapter is it, David? Because you didn't say last week.
It's chapter 11. No, is it chapter 10 perhaps?
I think it's 10. right?
10. Chapter 10, Generating the Bodhisattva
Oh, I did
Spirit.
get it right. Thank you.
In the present Dalai Lama's commentary, and in the root text, it is the section called Training the Mind on the Exclusive Path of the Man of Great Scope. So we see that the previous two sections, we started with training the mind on the common path of small scope. Okay, so what that means is that these are the practices that are practiced by someone who is a small scope practitioner. That is, someone whose motivation is simply to avoid a suffering rebirth, a lower rebirth in the next life, to be able to be reborn again in the human realm or in the Deva and the God realm. Okay, to have a happy rebirth instead of a suffering rebirth in the animal realm or the hungry ghost realm or the hell realm. Now that's the small scope. But here it specifically says training the mind on the common path of small scope. So in other words, those practices are not only practiced by someone who has that limited motivation, but they also must be practiced by someone who has a higher motivation. So we need to do those practices even though we are not practitioners of the small scope. Okay, our motivation is higher, but in order to get where we're going, we need to first of all ground our practice in those common practices, those practices that are common to all three scopes. And then the next section, training the mind again on the common path of the man of intermediate scope of spiritual application. So this is really based on the Four Noble Truths, the general teachings of the Buddha, or the Hinayana path. And here, but within the Mahayana, that's a person who is just following that general path to nirvana, to individual liberation, is called someone of the intermediate scope because they're not a Mahayana practitioner, they're not a bodhisattva. But if we want to practice the Mahayana path, we also must practice diligently all of those practices that are common. And so now we're on the third section, training the mind on the exclusive path of the man of great scope. So these practices are only applied to the Mahayana. These are the practices that differentiate the Mahayana person from a Hinayana practitioner. So fundamentally, it is the motivation, right? That is the difference. The fundamental difference between Hinayana and Mahayana is that in the Hinayana, the motivation is to become free from suffering. And in the Mahayana, it is to free all beings from suffering.
Is your mic on? I hate to ask, it didn't happen last week or something.
Yeah, we've been through all that in quite some detail.
Good. Carry
on. Okay. So, the third Dalai Lama says, although by means of the higher trainings in ethical discipline, concentration and wisdom, so this is the fourth noble truth, the path leading to the cessation of suffering, can be seen as those three higher trainings, moral discipline, concentration and wisdom. Through those higher trainings one can attain nirvana, or liberation from cyclic existence. This attainment in itself is not sufficient. Even though it's a very, very high spiritual attainment, it's not the highest. It doesn't, as he says, basically, even though one has attained nirvana, surprisingly, he's saying, one has not really fulfilled oneself from one's own point of view, haven't even fulfilled your own purposes. So that in the Mahayana, the goal of the Mahayana is to fulfill your own purposes and the purposes of others. So even for oneself, there is still a need to attain full enlightenment, because nirvana, personal liberation, if you remain at that level, you have not actualized your full potential of wisdom, of compassion, of even happiness. Actually, it is a much higher form of happiness than full enlightenment. Is a much higher form of happiness than the state of nirvana, or individual liberation. Okay. For he who has gained nirvana, there was never again the need to wander in samsara, yet because only a part of one's faults have been overcome, okay, referring to the fact that the delusions, the mental afflictions, the kleshas have been eliminated. So an arhat, someone who has attained that individual nirvana, that personal liberation from samsara, they have completely eliminated those mental afflictions such as anger, ignorance, jealousy, pride, attachment and so on. All of those can no longer ever arise again in their mind. But there are more subtle, what are called obscurations or obstructions, still present in the mind. These are the obscurations to omniscience. The mental... They are like the traces of those delusions that are left behind when the delusions themselves have been removed. So it's compared to if you have garlic in a jar and you take the garlic out, the smell of the garlic is still there. Right? So for the arhat, the person who's followed the Hinayana path to its conclusion, to its goal, they have eliminated the mental afflictions from the mind, but there is still a trace, an imprint of those mental afflictions left. And the form that takes is that everything appears to that person's mind as if it is inherently existent. They know that it's not. They know that perfectly. And when they're in deep meditation, they see the emptiness of inherent existence directly. But when they arise from meditation, they see the phenomena, they see the objects as if they still appear to be inherently existent. Yeah. And when they are in meditative absorption on emptiness, they cannot see the conventional reality. They cannot see the phenomena. They can only see the emptiness. Right? This is an arhat. And therefore, they're not able to see all phenomena simultaneously. They're not able to see conventional and ultimate phenomena at the same time.
So they haven't surpassed duality.
They have not completely transcended dualistic appearance. They've transcended dualistic conception. They no longer think that things are inherently existent, but things still appear to their mind as if they were inherently existent.
Wow.
Okay.
That's very subtle.
Very subtle indeed. Extremely subtle, that's right.
Wow.
Yeah. So there is a need to look to the goal of complete Buddhahood. There's the dialogue. Yeah. So because it goes on, only a fraction of perfection has been attained. Omnipotence and omniscience have not been attained. That's quite kind of high aspiration, isn't it? I'm not satisfied yet because I'm not yet omnipotent or omniscient. I don't know everything and I don't have the power to do everything. Why do I want those things? Only in order to help others. If I want them for another reason, then it's based upon ego and it will never work. Because the only way to attain that omniscience and omnipotence is to completely destroy the ego. So there is a need to look to the goal of complete Buddhahood, which is ultimate fulfillment from both one's own and others' point of view. Completely fulfill your own purposes and the purposes of others. Okay. So that says again, one should not think to gain Buddhahood merely for one's own benefit. One should want it purely in order to be able to more efficiently and deeply benefit all sentient beings. Just as you have fallen into the ocean of samsaric misery, so have all others, and they, like you, know only frustration and misery. I think, they know only frustration and misery sounds a bit harsh. But technically, for anybody, any sentient being, anyone who is not a Buddha, there is not a moment when you're not experiencing some form of suffering. Even in the highest bliss in the God realms, or even a high Bodhisattva, you still are experiencing the pervasive suffering of samsara.
I find this very subtle.
It's very, very subtle.
Because this is in the higher realms.
Yeah, yeah.
And part of my mind, and I'm sure it's not just my mind, is saying, well, if let's say I had achieved nirvana for myself, there could be a tendency to, or even the lower grades below that. I mean, now I could say I'm the happiest ever I've been in my life. And at the same time reading this, I was thinking, well, I'm not really interested, if I'm honest, in going up another level, because this is far beyond what I ever dreamed of. It takes less effort every day generally,
That's good.
and it gets better. So how do we counter? I mean, I think the answer is the third Dalai Lama is trying to inspire us. He's not saying it from a weary point of view like me. He's saying, I'm the pull factor. This, if you think that's good, you could get even more and help everybody else with the ultimate gift.
Yeah.
And that's what I hear in it, is a correct interpretation. It's not weariness from a lower level.
No.
It's, here's the diamonds. If you thought that was brilliant, here's, well, yeah, essence of refined gold.
Exactly. So, thank you, Milan. Could I gently remind you that I would like, if possible,
Okay.
if we can keep the sort of detailed comments and questions till the end.
Okay.
And just anything, the point of clarification is fine, but I'd like to just sort of try and keep the flow, if you like.
Will you say when it's the end?
Yeah, okay.
Okay.
Okay, so three types of suffering that we looked at before. I think we looked at them in detail in the second scope. So the one that we are familiar with, manifest suffering, it's called the suffering of suffering. Everyone recognises as suffering: physical pain, mental distress, the obvious type of suffering. Then we have the suffering of change, which might be what Milan was referring to. You know, we might feel temporarily very happy and blissful, but we know in reality that isn't going to last. And it's going to change. And you know, we buy the brand new latest model of Porsche, and our bliss is extreme for a short period of time until somebody just brushes past it with a coat with metal buttons, and there's a tiny little scratch on it, and there's isn't it? You know. So all our kind of samsaric pleasures are like that. You know, they're never anything more than a momentary, you know, moment of delight, and even that pleasure itself is contaminated. It's not pure pleasure, actually. It's contaminated, for instance, by anxiety. There's already anxiety there, isn't there? I should imagine from the moment you put down the deposit on that Porsche, it's very extreme anxiety is in the back of your mind all the time. So, yeah. So that suffering of change, and then the killer dillers, you know, is the pervasive suffering. That whatever we're experiencing, as long as we're in samsara, we're still in samsara. We still have the potential to suffer in the future. Actually, the essence of it, really. That pervasive suffering consists in the fact that we still view phenomena as inherently existent, and therefore we are still liable to fall into all of the different forms of delusion, and therefore to experience the resulting suffering. So all of the sentient beings are experiencing suffering now. They will experience suffering in the future. They have experienced suffering in the past, and they are none other than, you know, our loved ones, really. You know, they all have been so close to us. They all have shown us unimaginable kindness. So this is the teaching. We're going to look next week at the meditation to develop the bodhicitta mind, based on recognizing all sentient beings as having been one's mother. And you can use father, you can use child, you can use any kind of close relationship. At the moment, we see most sentient beings as strangers. They're not related to us at all. The vast majority, like 99.99999, however many nines you like, percent, are strangers to us, aren't they? The ones that we feel close to, we feel love and compassion towards in a very real way, is a tiny, tiny number. Infinitesimal number. So this meditation is to lead us to a point where we recognize there's no difference, really. There shouldn't be any difference between our relationship to any sentient being. They all are worthy of our complete devotion, love and kindness and gratitude, or everything that they've given us. So just a skillful means to develop that attitude of mind that sees all sentient beings as our dear ones, our loved ones, who are suffering, who need our help. It is only justice that if you are to gain liberation and omniscience, they too should be freed from anguish. Quite right. So it is primarily to benefit them that you yourself must reach the state of peerless, non-abiding nirvana. So this is this term non-abiding nirvana. Of course, we talk about nirvana, and often we sort of talk about, the Arhat has attained nirvana and the Buddha has reached enlightenment, so we differentiate between them. But of course the Buddha's enlightenment is also a form of nirvana. It's a higher nirvana than the nirvana of the Arhat. So the Arhat is said to be in an abiding nirvana. The Arhat abides in that absorption, that meditation on emptiness. When the Arhat, until they actually pass away, until they die from the life in which they've attained that nirvana, then their experience alternates between, as I said, between being absorbed in meditation, when they only perceive the emptiness, and when they arise from meditation, they only perceive conventional phenomena, which appear as inherently existent, although they know that they aren't. But when they pass away, when they die, their mind actually, according to the Mahayana view, what actually happens is that they then are reborn in a formless realm. So normally we hear about the formless realms as within samsara. Okay, there is a formless realm in samsara where, through the force of very, very powerful concentration, but not necessarily any realization of emptiness, one can gain a rebirth in this blissful, disembodied state of contemplation. And the Arhat, according to the Mahayana, when the Arhat dies, they enter that kind of formless realm, but it is not in samsara, because they are not just in a state of meditative concentration, they are in a state of meditation, directly perceiving emptiness. So there is no suffering, there's no basis for suffering, there's no self-grasping, there's no delusion. They're in a formless realm, but they're completely free from suffering. Right? But they have no, in that state, there's nothing they can do for the rest of us. So, and they stay in that formless state for an incredibly long time. It's, I haven't seen any numbers on it, but I know it is such a long time that they stay in that, they dwell in that kind of blissful contemplation of emptiness. Therefore, it's said in the Bodhisattva is more concerned about avoiding falling down to the Hinayana path than they are about going to the hell realms. Even though the hell realms is quite a long time, it's millions of years, but the Arhat abides in this absorption on emptiness for a much longer time. So if you were to lose your bodhicitta and fall to the Hinayana path, your ability to help others would be postponed by a much, much longer time than if you went to the hell realms. So that is an object of fear for the Bodhisattva. They do not want to lose their bodhicitta and fall down to the Hinayana path, because then they cannot help for an incredibly long time. So this is why the bodhicitta mind is so strongly emphasized. Only through deeply meditating on great compassion we generate such a strong motivation that we don't get, as it were, seduced by the temptation of this blissful state of the arhat. I heard actually, this is a contemporary story, so it's a few years ago, somebody told me, somebody that they knew had been to Thailand. It's a Tibetan Buddhist practitioner who was living in Dharamsala, I think, and he'd gone to Thailand to study the meditation with the Theravada masters, because he'd heard that they had a really, really wonderful sort of concentration, and he went there for some time and had made great progress in his meditation, and he was afraid that he would be sort of get so sucked into how blissful it was, he left to go back to India because he thought he might lose his bodhicitta, because it was so kind of, the bliss was that he was developing in the meditation was so powerful. He didn't have enough, he was worried he didn't have enough compassion to, sort of not get drawn into that path. So this is, it's not just, that's one story that I heard, but it's one that is echoed in, there are a few stories about that in the tradition. But the Bodhisattva has to be very careful not to get sidetracked onto the Hinayana path. It's a long detour. So very, very important then. What we need to work on is this attitude of mind that is primarily concerned with the well-being of others, more concerned with the well-being of others than with one's own well-being. And because of that, out of that concern for others, paradoxically, what do? We develop a strong determination to attain full enlightenment, which of course benefits us more than it benefits anybody else. But that's the only way that we can really help. Only way we can really help on a deep level, many beings, is to attain full enlightenment. And the only way we can attain full enlightenment is by developing this mental attitude that is primarily, or even apparently even solely concerned with the welfare of others. Like disregarding any sort of hardship that one may have to undergo, whatever is necessary to help sentient beings, one will do. The Bodhisattva will do anything that will benefit others, no matter how much suffering it involves for himself or him or herself. So it's a paradox. Because by doing that, of course, the result is never that they do create suffering for themselves. The result is always benefits them. But the motivation is, whatever happens, whatever is necessary, put others first. So it's a very, very high aspiration. And so, I think it's really important that, first of all, we don't become daunted by it, thinking, I could never do that. And that we don't underestimate how valuable it is, how precious it is to make any progress at all on that path. We shouldn't belittle our own achievements, however small, if we have a moment of victory where we say, right, that was, what I did then was coming from putting others first, being concerned with others rather than myself. And we have to be gentle with ourselves. It takes time, and we have to recognise at the moment our capacity is very limited. But if it grows a little bit every day, or every month, or every year, we're going to get there. So, it is easy to fall into beating ourselves up and thinking, I'm too selfish, I'm not selfless enough. And the reality is, we can't just switch it on like switching on a light. We have to train in it. We have to accept ourselves as we are. We have to be gentle and kind to ourselves. At the moment, I'm just an ordinary being. If I try to be a bodhisattva just like that, I'll get nowhere. I'll just fall down and hurt myself. So we have to recognise it. In fact, it can be ego operating there, isn't it? Sometimes, like, Oh, I'm not good enough. I should be more of a bodhisattva. I've got to try harder. No, we should be gentle. We should recognise slowly. It's a mental training. So, yeah. I mean, if you wanted to, do muscle building, you wouldn't start by trying to lift 300 pounds, would you? You start with a small weight and do it a few times every day, and then add a little bit to it after a week or two. It's the same thing, but we need to just exercise our compassion muscle a little bit every day, and it grows stronger and stronger. There's a lovely story, actually. This is about the practice of generosity. There's one monk, one lama, who he had a lot of trouble with this practice of generosity, and his teacher told him skillfully, what you should do is take a small coin and practice giving it from one hand to the other.
Small what?
Coin.
Thank you.
Practice giving it from one hand to the other. So he practiced that for a few years, and then he was able to give it away to somebody else. So we should think like that, however limited our practice is at the moment, if we can just increase it a little bit, very soon it starts to grow and it starts to become much more meaningful.
That's brilliant.
Yeah, it is, isn't it?
It's very zen-like, it's very clever, it's very humorous.
Skillful means.
It's brilliant.
Skillful means. So I'm just going to glance through the present Dalai Lama's commentary to see if there's anything, gems from there that we should take. And the Dalai Lama is emphasizing, the great need at this time. At the moment, he said, the world's spiritual traditions have greatly degenerated. It's very important in such times that the practitioners themselves make especially strong efforts to gain realization. So, this practice of bodhicitta, or this spiritual quality of bodhicitta, is the most precious thing in the world. And it's very rare. And it exists. And we have had this extraordinary fortune, extraordinary karma, to have met people who have this. It could be lost from the world, more or less completely. Can you imagine? This Tibetan Buddhist tradition is very fragile. It could easily be lost over a generation or two. It could easily happen. All of the Mahayana teachings could disappear from this world at any time. Very, very few people, although they are now much more accessible. Anybody, if you've got the motivation, anybody can find it on the internet. But how many people are looking? Very few. At the moment, the world's spiritual traditions have greatly degenerated. To permit the lineages of transmission to disappear is to allow the world to plunge into darkness. Those are strong words, aren't they, from the Dalai Lama? And it's true. We can see, looking around, how close the world is to being plunged into darkness. But now these precious teachings are here. We have the opportunity. We have the ability, actually. However, modest we may think, however inadequate we might feel at times, nevertheless we do have the ability. We can do it. We can do this. We can do these practices, and we can develop this mind of bodhicitta, which is compared to the sun. If bodhicitta disappears from the world, it's like the sun has gone out of this world. So please think about this. We should try to treasure this. It is a spiritual treasure. It's the greatest spiritual treasure. And we are the fortunate ones who have the opportunity. And we're only fortunate because we have the interest, the inclination. That's wonderful. That is so special. So don't take it lightly. You know, I don't think, you know, like I keep saying, we must be gentle. Don't beat yourself up. Don't try to, you know, do more than you can, but try to do every day something with bodhicitta. Think about it.
I feel gratitude when you've said all that, because every word is true.
Yeah.
And I see it like that. I feel I'm highly privileged.
It was at, who was at the teaching of the weekend? Oh, you were, weren't you? You were the only one? You didn't come, no.
I didn't.
Friday, but
Didn't get the ticket in time.
You did?
Just Friday.
Friday, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, to be in the presence of somebody like that,
Mm.
how amazing, isn't it?
It gives me goose pimples.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. So it only says each of us has to be able to feel the pride that we ourselves can reach perfection. You know, some kind of self-confidence, self-appreciation. We ourselves can attain enlightenment. When even one person engages in spiritual practice, it gives encouragement to the guardian spirits of the land and to the celestial deities who have sworn to uphold goodness. Very poetic, isn't it? This is a teaching he's given to the Tibetan community. He doesn't usually talk that way to the Western, but just to, you know, so that you understand. These forces then have the ability to release waves of beneficial effects upon mankind. Thus our practice has many direct and indirect benefits. We don't see it. We don't see, you know, we sit down on our cushion and we try and meditate on bodhicitta and feel we haven't done very well. But that is bringing hope into the world. So important, so valuable, so precious.
What page was that you've just read from?
Well, in the text that I've got, it's on page 137, but it's the second page of the 10th chapter. It's slightly different in different editions.
Ah, yes.
If we practice the teachings and live the ways of Dharma, all the natural forces of goodness will be behind us. When we look at mankind, we can see how few are engaged in serious spiritual training. And if we look at those in training, we can see how few are training effectively. But we can do it. So please read. This is beautiful teaching here. Please read this 10th chapter again and again.
It's got that flavour of carrot and stick, like warnings
Yeah.
against darkness, but also it's spiritual carrot and stick. It's also that inspiring poetry, poetic language, that wonderful, lucid,
beautiful.
diamond,
Yeah, beautiful
diamond
teaching.
hard yet feather light. Just totally inspiring language.
It is indeed.
That goes throughout the whole book, it seems.
Yeah. So, shall we have some discussion?
You said something very interesting about bodhisattvas.
Uh-huh.
You said lots of interesting things, but one, which is the bodhisattva will do anything regardless of his or her personal suffering. Now, I've read books by Pema Chodron and other Buddhists across many traditions, and half of them seem to say the likes of Mandela and Gandhi, they are bodhisattvas in our terms, and the other half say no. Now, how do you answer that one? Because I remember a BBC journalist interviewing the Dalai Lama and saying, "What is your religion?" A totally daft question. He wasn't. He was very perceptive, and he thought about it not too long at all. He looked at him directly, and he said, "My religion is kindness." And it seems to me the Mandelas and Gandhis and Willy Brandts, etc. of this world have enormous kindness, and to back that up, incredible fearlessness and non-anxiety and just loads of wholesome qualities, joy, calm, just imperturbability of mind. I mean, are these bodhisattvas or not? I'm still confused.
I think if you would ask the Dalai Lama, was Nelson Mandela a bodhisattva? Was Mahatma Gandhi a bodhisattva? He would say yes.
He would.
I'm pretty sure. Yes. Certainly Gandhi. I mean, Dalai Lama's a real, admirer, devotee of Gandhi. I'm sure he would say that Gandhi was a bodhisattva. I'm quite sure. I'm sure he would say that Mandela was.
So Buddhism is all form. They don't apply this language. Gandhi does some of it, but it's mostly Hindu and Christian and Catholic and across.
Being a
the-
bodhisattva is not limited to Buddhists. No, certainly not.
Good. Good. You're confirming my thinking. Well, I have to ask it. I haven't asked this question. I had it in my head for 10 years. I haven't asked
Okay.
it. Because they inspire me, and that's why I help the police break up gangs. And I'm not dead after 30 years. And I think if they can do that, I can be inspired by them and the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas. And yes, enlightenment is possible. People say,
Yeah. Yeah.
you're amazing. I said, the Buddhist advice is to look at those more spiritually advanced and to learn from them, not to admire your own ego.
Sure.
That's when you fall down, heavy and hard.
Very good. Thank you.
You've answered it.
You said that a bodhisattva can get waylaid by the Theravada,
Not Hinayana.
Hinayana
Yeah.
path.
Yeah.
So is that shamatha? Or what is it? What do you mean by that?
Well, it isn't not just shamatha. I mean, of course, that is another detour that's possible. If one, I mean, if it was just shamatha, that would not even be the middle scope. That would be the lower scope. Okay, so you sort of get deflected off from bodhicitta by just being absorbed in the bliss of concentration. You're going to end up in a diva realm,
Right.
form realm or formless realm, or possibly in the desire realm, through the power of concentration. And that's a samsaric rebirth. It's a higher rebirth, and so it is a genuine spiritual practice. But it's not even a Hinayana practice. It's there's even the non-Buddhist spiritual paths have that. But if it is the sort of serenity, the peace of nirvana that is attracting you, if it is not, there's not just meditative concentration, but meditative concentration on emptiness, but without bodhicitta, then that's a much longer detour, because you spend far longer in that stage of absorption as an arhat than you would in the Deva realm, even though that's a very long time. But it's even far longer again. The arhat, according to the Mahayana teachings, the arhat remains in that state of solitary contemplation on emptiness for an incredibly long time. So their ability to help sentient beings is interrupted for a usually long time.
So does that mean then, after however long it is, they've got to come back and
Yes.
start again
Yes.
from scratch?
They don't start again from scratch, because they already
But
have the
the
realization of
inference.
emptiness. But they come back in at quite a high level.
Right.
They generate bodhicitta after. It's said it's like the garlic in the jar.
Yeah,
the
the
smell
smell.
eventually all evaporates, and so the obstructions that are still in their mind are very, 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 very slowly dissipating, until suddenly it's said after that many countless aeons, they have the veil is sort of got a little bit thinner, and they see a vision of the Buddha. And the Buddha's sort of gives them the teaching and say that you need to practice the Bodhisattva path, so that they all become fully enlightened eventually. This is only according to the Mahayana teachings, of course. The Hinayana philosophical view, they don't accept that. They think it is a final goal, that those beings will never become Buddhas.
Right.
But the Mahayana don't agree with that. They say all beings eventually will attain Buddhahood. But if you fall into the Hinayana path, then that becomes much delayed. So the Bodhisattva doesn't want that. So it was interesting to me to hear, a real case of somebody who was actually felt they had reason to worry about it, and they left it because they said this place is so, seductive. They didn't want to leave. They realised if he didn't leave soon, he'd be stuck. He wouldn't want to go. Because there's a kind of a bit of a puzzle about why does the arhat, when they have attained that stage, why don't they then immediately practice become a bodhisattva? I don't really know the answer to that. Not quite sure. You'd think they would, but of course, if they don't accept the validity of the Mahayana teachings, which generally Theravada teachers wouldn't, they would say, well, no, only the Pali Canon, only the sort of these are the original teachings of the Buddha, and the Mahayana is something else. It's not really what the Buddha taught.
The reason I asked that question was 'cause I went on that Alan Wallace course, and it was all about shamatha.
Yes.
And he was on about the different levels of shamatha, and he was on about you could get to a certain level, which was bliss, and you didn't want to come out from that bliss.
Yes.
And is that where we're talking about, or is it something else?
That can happen as well, but so really, what protects you from that? Okay, if you don't have very strong renunciation of samsara, right? So this is the renunciation, bodhicitta, emptiness, the three principles. In order to generate bodhicitta, we first have to develop renunciation. We first have to see the full extent of the suffering of samsara, even the higher realms of samsara. So a very strong motivation not to get drawn into just going into a God realm, but to go beyond that to nirvana, right? So if we have that basis of strong renunciation, then we won't be seduced by the bliss of shamatha.
Yeah.
But even with renunciation, if we don't have bodhicitta, we can get seduced by the nirvana, personal nirvana, which is not full enlightenment. Then we're not in samsara, not suffering, there's no suffering, but we are unable to help others, right? So for the bodhisattva, that's even worse than suffering oneself, is not being able to help others, right? Get it now?
I get
clear.
it. It was just trying to clear it in the head with the shamatha, whether
yes.
it's trying to link up all the different teachings you've had, isn't it? And trying to
yeah. So the important thing is for us right now, the most important thing is for us to develop this loving compassion for others, and to try to bring that into our lives and into our thoughts and into our attitudes. There's nothing more important than that. The Dagger Rinpoche's teachings on compassion were so beautiful. So simple, so beautiful. And that was the message, and that's the most important thing. And of course, once we have that, we also need to be careful we have to train in emptiness, because otherwise that compassion can, I would say, not exactly become a problem, but if we don't have an understanding of emptiness, we're unable to actually benefit others on a deep level. We're kind of stuck with trying to, do temporary fix. It's only through understanding emptiness that we can really get to the final solution of the problem for ourselves and for others. So that's what we need, all three. You need renunciation, bodhicitta, and emptiness. And that's all we need. That's all you need. So the most important thing is the compassion, the bodhicitta. But you can't develop bodhicitta without the renunciation. So you need that as well. And then, for it to be fully effective, we also need the understanding of emptiness.
There's talk on the Bodhisattva path about this question arises time and again. I've read over the years in study groups, and it comes because they say, well, look at the qualities of a Bodhisattva and all these levels of various enlightened beings, right?
Yeah.
That's marvellous, but to most people, even after years of practice, it's like, how the hell am I going to do that? Even a fraction of that, yeah? A fraction of enlightenment. And because we're so consumed with passion, greed, rage, stupidity, browbeating ourselves, stories about the past, beating up former friends in our head, or
Yeah.
and all that kind of
Yeah,
basic
yeah,
passion.
Yeah.
But the antidote to that in these discussions has been, well, there is a certain point where spontaneous, deep compassion, pity but not self-pity or other pity in a destructive sense, really seeing things as they are, something like this does arise if you set up certain conditions. I've forgotten what they are, but it does definitively arise. That yes, we are stuck in this mundane sense of barriers, but there are things we can do, and where it talked about time and again, there's a spontaneous arising of compassion, bodhicitta, that does happen at some point if you practice the vows, certain set of vows as well. And I find that fascinating. I still don't quite get the answer though.
Well, I mean, compassion, like everything else, arises on the basis of causes and conditions. We create the cause, then it will arise. We can say it arises spontaneously, but it can only arise because we have created the cause at some time. But yes, it is a very natural thing. A mother naturally has compassion for her child. We all have, to a certain extent, I suppose. Well, there are these kind of strange things where there's something wrong with people's brains and they don't have any compassion, perhaps. But generally speaking, we all have this natural quality of compassion. It just needs the right circumstances. Something that we see arouses our compassion. We see some suffering, and for whatever reason, our heart or our mind is open to respond to that suffering. And we respond with compassion. So we all have that quality, and it is simply a matter of training to grow that seed into something bigger. That's all it is. So we never should be discouraged and feel I can't do it. That's absolutely not true. But we have compassion. We just need to water the seed every day. That's our practice, is to try to just slowly increase that compassion until it becomes much more powerful.
I find the biggest one is when they say everybody has been your mother or father and vice versa, therefore you have compassion beyond belief, totally unconditional. You'd die to save your child. And I find that is a really strong daily mantra for me.
Yeah, and that's what we're going to talk about next week.
Oh.
We'll do that meditation. So we'll stop there for now and do a little bit of meditation before we finish. So if that's all right. So take a few moments to set your posture and relax the body. And focus on the breathing for a few minutes. So in the past few weeks, we've looked in some detail at the teaching on suffering. And in connection with the first and second scope of the Lamrim, we're mostly looking at it from our own point of view. These are the sufferings that I have experienced in all my previous lives, that I have experienced in this life and I am experiencing now, that I will experience for the remainder of this life up to death, and then in the next life, and the next life, and the next life, if I do not find the escape route, the method to overcome suffering, to eliminate the cause of suffering from the mind. Now we want to begin to develop a great mind, a mind of great compassion. This is a big task. It's a big mind. We need to meditate over and over and over again on the vastness and the depth of suffering that is in this world. Even if I look at my own suffering in this life, if I were to add it all together, it would be somewhat overwhelming. But it is nothing compared to the suffering even of many of my fellow humans. Think of those in our own city. Just down the road, there are some tents of homeless people. People experiencing real hardship, poverty, deprivation, hunger, ill health, insecurity, fear, persecution. They are just around the corner. Hidden away in all the suburbs of our city are people, as we say, going through hell. Depression, anxiety, those who, through misfortune, have had to put themselves in debt to money lenders and principal people charging huge rates of interest. Those people are in constant anxiety and fear. They do not know how they're going to get through to the end of the week. Through the government spending cuts, how many of our fellow citizens can no longer afford enough food to keep them healthy, can no longer afford to heat their homes? How many families are torn apart by jealousy, resentment, negative emotions? Even in this human realm, this higher rebirth, the suffering is beyond our imagination. even without going to the war zones, the earthquake zones, the famine zones, Iraq, Syria, Uganda, Somalia, everywhere in this world. The vastness of suffering is staggering. This is just the human realm. What about the animals? The cattle, the pigs, battery chickens, millions upon millions upon millions living in concentration camps. Being subjected to horrendous suffering for commercial gain. Think about what will be the suffering experienced by those who are inflicting that pain when they have to pay the karmic price of their actions. If you don't believe in the existence of the hell realms, then where do the factory farmers, the militarists, the drug barons, even the corporate executives who are stealing the water from indigenous people, where are they reborn? If not in a hellish state of suffering. Therefore they, as much or even more than those victims, should be the object of our compassion. We don't meditate on these distressing subjects just in order to make ourselves miserable. We meditate on them because our real spiritual motivation can only come from facing that suffering to its full depth. At the moment when we look at that, ocean of suffering, we're just overwhelmed. But we cannot turn aside, because these beings are just the same as us. Although we feel they're not connected to me, because they're not my relative or my friend or my work colleague, those are the people that I'm related to, that I have responsibility for, or my dog or my cat. These are the ones at the moment that are the object of our care and concern. But there is no real basis for us to discriminate like that. Suffering is the same, whether it is someone we know well and love, or someone who is a stranger. Once we realize the full depth, the full meaning of the suffering of this world, we cannot turn a blind eye. But what, in fact, can we do? without the Mahayana teachings, without these particular spiritual teachings, we would have to say we are helpless. Perhaps we can pray, ask God to do something, but we ourselves would surely feel utterly defeated in the face of this. And yet, the Buddha has shown a way that we can rise to this challenge through following this Bodhisattva path. Amazingly, incredibly, there is a way that we can truly help on a big scale, really make a difference if we follow in the Buddha's footsteps, follow the Bodhisattva path. We too can become fully enlightened. We too can gain the ability, the power to help limitless numbers of beings. Think of how many beings have been helped by the Buddha's teachings already. Even in his own time, many, many, many thousands of people enter the path to enlightenment. Even thousands of people attained nirvana, and some undoubtedly attained complete enlightenment. Since then, hundreds of millions, even billions of people have been able to take refuge in the Buddha, to follow the Buddha's teachings, to find a way to genuine happiness, to higher spiritual realizations. And any who had the motivation have had the opportunity, the ability to follow the path to full enlightenment, to be of limitless benefit to all sentient beings. And we ourselves have the incredible good fortune now to have met this path. So we should think deeply on this and strengthen our determination every day to meditate on compassion, meditate on bodhicitta. Even if it's just for 2 or 3 minutes at the beginning of our meditation session. And then the tiny seed that is our present development of compassion will begin to grow into a great tree that can give shelter to our suffering, thirsty, hungry fellow beings. So for a few minutes, try to bring these thoughts to a point. Focus your mind on the determination to develop great compassion, a heartfelt aspiration, a wish to follow the path to full enlightenment all the way to the end. Dedication prayers. It's 22, I think. Actually, we'll say it in English. 23. May the supreme jewel body cheetah has not arisen, arise and grow. And may that which has arisen not diminish, but increase more and more. Through the merits of these virtuous actions, may I quickly attain the state of Guru Buddha, and lead all living beings without exception into that enlightened state. Just as the brave Manjushri and Samantabhadra too realize things as they are, also I dedicate all these merits in the best way, that I may follow their perfect example. I dedicate all these roots of virtue with the dedication praised as the best by the victorious ones thus gone of the 3 times, so that I might perform the noble bodhisattva's deeds. Long Life Prayers, page 34.
What page?
34. Chang Jing Jang Gun Wei Tan Sin Kebel Wei Kun Zhe Dog Bo Zi Chong Sum Ko Wei Le Mun Tu Du Pa Dog So Du Jie Gun Du Jan Tan Chong Gang Wei Ra Wei Kar Wei Jing Kam De Pen Dang De Wa Ma Lu Zhong Wei Chen Wei Zi Wan Ten Zin Gyat So Yi Zhang Pei Si Te Ba Du Ten Yo Ji. Thank you very much. Okay. I haven't been keeping my eye on the programme. What is coming up? Anybody noticed? Have we got any? Right, I know what we do have actually. I mentioned that probably most of you won't be able to attend it, but the Tara Puja on Mondays, which is it is Monday lunchtime. So if anybody is able to come, Dagra Rinpoche mentioned that in order to create the merit to build a new centre, a new community, what we need to do is Tara practice. So he's very strongly emphasised that. He's told us we need to get 21 Tara statues, small ones like this, 21 small statues like this, and a big one like this. If we do that, if we get those 21 Tara statues, and we do the Tara practice, we'll be able to raise the money to build our new centre. So please come if you're able to come on a Monday at lunchtime at 12:30 to do this. This puja. This is going to be one of our main practices now.
How do we get the Tara statues?
Well, we may have to make some effort there to raise money to buy the statues, because he said they're not very expensive. Probably that's about like £7,000 or £8,000 or something. We'll have to find, but
For each one, or?
no, altogether.
Okay.
Yeah.
So what about Lama Zopa Rinpoche said it was the medicine Buddha?
Oh, this was just a very general instruction. I mean, the medicine Buddha is also as good for creating merit. Yeah, that's also good. I mean, there are many practices that we can do, but since we've had this specific instruction from Dagra Rinpoche, we should do the Tara, so we're going to focus more on that. But yes, we will do the other ones as well. There's a number of practices that we can do that will help to, remove the obstacles and create the money that's needed to build the new centre.
That's very exciting.
Very exciting, yeah.
Yeah.
He's more or less given us written guarantee, if we do this, it'll work.
Let's do it.
Anyway, I'm lying on mine, aren't I? I've got to be up to. I should have been announcing that to the whole world. But. So,
if I read it correctly in the programme,
uh-huh.
that the Monday Tara Pujas